You've seen already in the last hour that decision by the Constitutional Court to release Janus Valus on parole after his role in the assassination of Chris Hani in 1993. To the other big court development of the day now, the Supreme Court of Appeal ruling that former President Jacob Zuma, as I understand their ruling, must go to jail, but for a term to be determined by the new Commissioner of Correctional Services. You'll recall how the former Commissioner of Correctional Services, Arthur Fraser, overruled a decision by the Medical Parole Board, Advisory Board, in the Correctional Services Department, and said that Zuma should be granted medical parole after he had been sentenced to a jail term for defying the Constitutional Court's ruling that he must continue giving testimony at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. Well, let's start with the legal view. Romeo Ntambeleni is a well-known legal expert. He joins us now. Romeo, good afternoon to you. How do you interpret today's ruling? Does the former president have to go back to jail?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Stephen. Thanks for having me. Indeed, in the body of the order, that is the indication of what the Supreme Court of Appeal is actually saying, is that he must return to the facility, to actually complete, his term, and then the amount that he has to spend, it has to be determined by the commissioner, as you have correctly set out. So that is correct. That in the body of the judgment, they indicate that he must return to escort correctional facility to actually complete his term.
Could the Commissioner of Correctional Services determine that the term be 0 days?
No, I don't think so. Because remember, the SCA was also indicated that the Correctional Services, by issuing a statement, saying that he has completed his term, they were actually jumping the gun, and they shouldn't have done so. They should have waited for the judgment, and then they have to make a determination as to what term he has to actually serve while is in prison, because that is what the judgment says of the SCA.
This is a new space. I'm not aware of a case where someone was released on medical parole and then that decision was ruled to be invalid, and so they were told they had to go back to jail. And the important thing here, as I understand it, is that Zuma did remain at home because he was on parole. So, in other words, he was serving a sentence of some sort while he was at home. The reason I bring this up is that this, I think, may be unprecedented. So I'm not aware of any other cases to guide the new Commissioner of Correctional Services.
Absolutely. You're quite correct, Steve, because remember that when you are released and you go out and you serve the remainder of your sentence when you're still out, in terms of the Correctional Services Act, you are still serving your sentence. So it's a very interesting one as to how they are going to actually resolve it, because the order says go back, to the Correctional Services facility to complete your sentence, because part of your sentence was actually completed when you were not incarcerated and where you were supposed to have been incarcerated, and you were unlawfully released on medical parole on the grounds that don't actually qualify you to be released on medical parole. So it's a new case, and it's unprecedented, as you have actually indicated, Steve.
I worry, Romeo, that it may never be resolved. Let me explain why I worry about that, because we will now have an appeal to the Constitutional Court, I'm certain, on this matter.
Absolutely.
And then the Commissioner, whatever decision the Commissioner makes, it could say, let's just say for argument's sake, he says that former President Zuma must go to jail for 6 months. That will probably be challenged by Zuma. If he says he must go to prison for a day, that will probably be challenged by AfriForum.
Yeah. You're quite correct, Steve, in terms of the prospects of this matter, because knowing how litigious the former president is going to go all the way to the Constitutional Court. And unfortunately, Steve, the courts cannot be able to determine in terms of giving an order of saying go into prison and serve 3 months. They cannot do that, because that is the prerogative of the commissioner himself. That's why the court was very clear that that determination ought to be made by the commissioner, looking at the act, looking at the specific circumstances of the accused person himself. So you're quite correct, and I completely agree with you in terms of how you have forecast the outcome of this matter actually going forward, because that is what I completely agree. I see it that way.
Advocate Romeo Ntambeleni, as always, thank you very much indeed for the legal clarity. I do appreciate it.